I never thought I would become the villain in my own family's story. For 32 years, I had been the dutiful daughter, the one who answered every call, who showed up with a smile, even when my heart was breaking, who wrote check after check because family came first. That is what my mother Ellie always said. Family came first. But on that cold November evening when I walked into my parents' house to pick up my children, I finally understood that in their definition of family, my children and I had never truly been included. The house smelled like garlic and fresh-baked bread when I stepped through the front door. Classical music played softly from the living room speaker. My mother's voice drifted from the kitchen, sugary sweet, as she called out to someone. Everything looked perfect as it always did. The throw pillows on the cream-colored sofa were arranged just so. The family photos lined the hallway in expensive frames. But I had learned long ago that perfection was just another word for performance in this house. I was running late that evening, a client meeting had gone over, and traffic on the interstate had been brutal. Malcolm had texted me earlier asking if I wanted him to pick up the kids instead, but I had declined. I needed to do this. I needed to show my parents that I was still trying, still making an effort despite everything. Despite the subtle digs about Malcolm's British accent. Despite the way my mother's smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at Eli and Noah. Despite the fact that we were only ever invited for Christmas dinner in the late afternoon. Never the morning when Shar and her family unwrapped presents around the tree. I called out as I entered, but no one answered. The house was larger than it needed to be for 2 people. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a formal dining room that sat 12. I had co-signed the mortgage 9 years ago when they were underwater on their previous loan. My financial advisor had cautioned against it, but my father Bob had looked at me with those tired eyes and said that family helped family. So I had signed, just like I had paid for the kitchen renovation 3 years ago, just like I had bought my mother a new car when hers broke down, just like I had been doing since I graduated college and landed my first real job. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard voices. My sister Shar's laugh, sharp and brittle. My mother's murmur of agreement. I slowed my steps, something in their tone making the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Honestly, I don't know why she insists on leaving them here so often, Char was saying. They're so different from Liam and Olivia. I mean, the kids are fine, I suppose, but you can tell they're not really part of us. Charlotte, don't say that, my mother replied, but there was no real reproach in her voice. Just that weary tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable while agreeing with something terrible. I'm just being honest. Those mixed kids need to learn their place early. Better they understand now than get their hopes up. And Jackie spoils them, always going on about how special and smart they are. Someone needs to ground them in reality. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand pressed against the wall for support. Mixed kids. Those mixed kids. As if Eli and Noah were some kind of experiment, some unfortunate accident that needed to be managed rather than cherished. Well, at least she's good for helping with expenses, my mother said, and I heard the clink of dishes. Your father's retirement isn't going as far as we thought, but Jacqueline has always been reliable with money. She'll keep helping. It's what she does. I forced myself to move forward to round the corner into the kitchen. What I saw there would burn into my memory forever, a snapshot of everything I had been refusing to see for years. My children, 8-year-old Eli and 6-year-old Noah, were sitting on the kitchen floor, not at the breakfast nook, not at the kitchen island where the nice chairs were. On the actual tile floor, their backs against the cabinet, eating sandwiches that looked dry and unappetizing. Cold cuts on white bread, no vegetables, no sides. They ate quietly, methodically, as if this was normal, as if they had been taught not to complain. Through the doorway to the dining room, I could see my sister's children, Liam and Olivia, sitting at the mahogany table that had belonged to my grandmother. They had plates of lasagna steaming in front of them, garlic bread on the side salad in crystal bowls. They laughed and chatted while my mother fussed over them, cutting Olivia's food into smaller pieces, asking Liam about his soccer practice. The contrast was so stark, so undeniable, that I felt something crack inside my chest. It was not subtle. It was not accidental. This was intentional. This was a message. Char noticed me first. Her expression shifted so quickly it would have been impressive if it was not so sickening. Fake surprise melted into fake warmth. "Oh, Jackie, we didn't hear you come in. The kids have been absolute angels." My mother turned, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her smile bright and empty. Darling, you're here. Let me get the children's things. I did not respond. I could not. My eyes were locked on Eli, who was looking up at me with those beautiful brown eyes so much like Malcolm's. There was something in his expression that made my throat close up. Resignation. He looked resigned, as if he had accepted that this was how things were and would always be. Get your coats, I said, my voice coming out harder than I intended. We're leaving. Noah perked up immediately, scrambling to his feet. We can go home now, Mama. That simple question asked with such relief and hope was the match that lit the fuse. We can go home now. As if being in his grandparents' house was something to be endured rather than enjoyed. As if home, our home with Malcolm, was the safe place, and this beautiful house with its expensive furniture and perfect decor was the danger. Jacqueline, what's wrong? My mother asked, still wearing that smile. The children are fine. They've had their dinner. On the floor, I said flatly. They ate on the floor while Liam and Olivia ate lasagna at the table. Char waved her hand dismissively. Oh, don't be dramatic. They chose to sit there. They said they wanted to play a picnic game. I looked at Eli. Is that true? He glanced at his grandmother, then at the floor. We didn't want to bother anyone. The careful way he said it, the practiced neutrality in his voice, told me everything I needed to know. My children had learned to make themselves small in this house. They had learned not to expect the same treatment as their cousins. They had learned that asking for equality was asking for too much. My father appeared from his study, drawn by the commotion. Bob was a tall man, still imposing at 68, with silver hair and a voice that commanded attention. What's all this noise about, Jackie? Why are you making such a fuss? I'm taking my children home, I said, helping Noah into his jacket. And we won't be coming back until someone can explain to me why my kids are eating sandwiches on the floor, while Char's children eat hot meals at the table. Oh, for heaven's sake, Bob said, his voice rising. They're fine. You're being oversensitive as usual, making everything about race when it's not. Making everything about race, I repeated, my voice shaking now. They called my children those mixed kids and said they need to learn their place. I heard you, both of you. The silence that followed was deafening. Char's face went white, then red. My mother busied herself with the dish towel, refusing to meet my eyes. My father straightened his shoulders, his jaw tightening in that way it did when someone challenged him. You were eavesdropping, he said coldly, listening to private conversations. In a house I help pay for, I shot back, using money I earned to support a family that apparently thinks my children are less than their cousins because of the color of their skin. That's not what anyone said, Char interjected, but her voice was too high, too defensive. You're twisting things. We love Eli and Noah. Prove it, I said, gathering the children's backpacks. Show me one photo in this house where they're front and center. Show me one Christmas morning invitation. Show me one time you've treated them exactly the same as Liam and Olivia. No one answered. They could not, because the evidence was everywhere. I had been seeing it for years, making excuses, telling myself I was imagining things. The way my parents' faces fell slightly when I announced I was dating Malcolm, a black British professor. The way they had been cool toward our engagement, citing concerns about cultural differences. The way they had held Eli as a newborn with a kind of careful distance, as if he might break or contaminate something. The way they never posted photos of my family on social media, but filled their Facebook page with Char's children. The way holidays were always scheduled around Char's convenience, never mine. I had told myself it was not about race. My parents were not like that. They had voted Democrat. They had black friends at church. They had gone to diversity training at the community center. But those were performances too, just like the perfect house and the classical music and the expensive photo frames. Because when it came to their own grandchildren, when it came to accepting that their bloodline now included blackness, they could not do it. They could not love Eli and Noah the same way they loved Liam and Olivia. You're making a scene, my father said, his voice low and threatening, in that way that used to make me back down when I was a child. The children are fine. This is your own insecurity talking. We've done nothing wrong. But I was not a child anymore. I was a 32-year-old woman with a successful career, a loving husband, and 2 beautiful children who deserved better than this. We're leaving, I said again, more firmly this time. And we're not coming back until things change. Jackie, please. My mother started reaching for me. I pulled away. No, not this time. I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done making excuses for you. My children will not grow up thinking they're less than anyone because of who they are. I took Eli and Noah by the hands and walked toward the front door. As we passed through the hallway, I saw them, the family photos I had been too afraid to really look at before. There were dozens of them arranged in a careful gallery, and in every single one that included both families, Char's children were front and center. Liam held by my mother, Olivia on my father's lap, and my children, when they were included at all, were off to the side, partially cut off in some shots, blurry in others, as if they were optional additions easily cropped out if needed. I had paid for some of those frames. I had paid for the wall paint. I had paid for the house itself. And I had never been worth centering in their family story. The drive home was quiet. Noah fell asleep in his car seat, almost immediately exhausted from whatever had happened that day. But Eli stayed awake, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. "Mama," he said softly as we pulled onto our street. "Are we in trouble?" My heart broke. "No, baby, you're not in trouble. You did nothing wrong." Grandma seemed mad. "Grandma is dealing with her own issues," I said carefully. "But you and your brother are perfect exactly as you are. Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise." Malcolm was waiting when we got home. He took one look at my face and knew something had happened. After we got the children settled in their rooms, I told him everything. The floor, the comments I had overheard, the photos, all of it. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked, confused. "For not pushing harder, for letting you convince me it was all in our heads. I've known for years that your family treats us differently. I've known they look at our children and see problems instead of gifts. I should have said something sooner." "I wouldn't have listened," I admitted. "I wanted so badly to believe they were better than this, that my family was better than this." That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction, every holiday, every supposedly innocent comment over the years. My mother saying Eli's hair was so difficult compared to Liam's straight blonde locks. My father warning me that the world would be harder for mixed children. Char constantly posting about Liam and Olivia's achievements, but never mentioning when Eli made honor roll or when Noah won his school art contest. At 3 in the morning, I got out of bed and went to my home office. I opened my laptop and pulled up my financial records. I had always been meticulous about tracking expenses, a habit from my accounting background. It took me an hour to compile everything, but when I was done, I was staring at a number that made me feel physically ill. $141,000. That was how much I had given or loaned to my parents over the past 9 years. The mortgage co-signing, the kitchen renovation, my mother's car, my father's medical bills when he had a health scare and their insurance did not cover everything, the property tax payments when they fell behind, the credit card debt I had paid off twice, the vacation to Hawaii I had funded for their 40th anniversary. $141,000 to a family that made my children eat on the floor. I opened a new document and started typing. Every instance I could remember of differential treatment, every comment, every slight, every time my family had been relegated to second-tier status. I wrote it all down, creating a timeline of emotional abuse and financial exploitation. Then I noticed something else in my records. There was a recurring payment I had set up 5 years ago. $500 a month automatically transferred to my parents' account to help with their expenses. 60 months of payments. $30,000 I had almost forgotten about because it was automatic, invisible, expected. I opened my online banking and canceled the transfer. Then I called the bank's after-hours line and requested to be removed as a co-signer from my parents' mortgage. The representative said it would require refinancing or paying off the loan, which was not my problem anymore. I filed the paperwork to start the process of removing my name from any legal obligation to that house. Malcolm found me at dawn, still sitting at my computer surrounded by papers and printouts. "What are you doing?" he asked gently. "What I should have done years ago," I said. "I'm cutting them off." He sat down beside me, reading over my shoulder. The spreadsheet with the dollar amounts, the timeline of incidents, the bank confirmation showing the canceled automatic payment. "Are you sure?" he asked. "This is going to cause problems." "Good," I said, and I meant it. Let them have problems. Let them figure out how to pay their bills without my money. Let them understand what they're losing. They're going to fight this, Malcolm warned. Let them fight, I replied. I'm done being accommodating. I'm done being understanding. I'm done sacrificing my family's dignity for people who don't even respect us enough to give my children a proper meal. The call started before breakfast. My phone rang 6 times before 8 in the morning. All from my father. I declined every one. Then came the text messages. Urgent. Call immediately. Banking error. Need to discuss. I blocked his number. My mother tried next. Her messages were different, full of hurt and confusion. Sweetie, your father says there's a problem with the bank transfer. Can you call us? We're worried about you. Did we do something wrong? I blocked her too. By noon, Char was calling. I let that one go to voicemail just to hear what she would say. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. Jackie, what the hell are you doing? Mom and Dad are freaking out about money. They said you cut them off. This is ridiculous. You can't just abandon family because of some misunderstanding. Call me back. Now. I deleted the message and blocked her number as well. That afternoon, I called Sarah my best friend since college. Sarah was blunt to the point of rudeness sometimes, but she was also fiercely loyal and had never particularly liked my family. I told her everything starting from the beginning and ending with the morning's phone blocking spree. There was a long silence when I finished. Then Sarah said, "Thank fucking God." I laughed, surprised. What? Jackie, I've been watching this happen for years. Watching you bend over backwards for people who treat you like a bank and your kids like charity cases. I've wanted to say something so many times, but I didn't know how without making you defensive. I'm so glad you finally see it. Her validation meant more than I expected. I had been so afraid that I was overreacting, that I was being too sensitive, that I was destroying my family over nothing. But Sarah's certainty helped shore up my own wavering resolve. What do I do now? I asked. You stand firm, Sarah said. They're going to try everything to get you back in line. Guilt, anger manipulation, playing the victim. You have to be ready for all of it, and you have to decide what your boundaries are and stick to them no matter what. I thought about that for the rest of the day. What did I want? What were my terms? Did I want to cut them off completely, or was there a path to reconciliation? By evening, I had my answer. I wanted an apology. A real one, not the non-apology, sorry you feel that way bullshit. I wanted acknowledgement that they had treated my children differently because of race. I wanted to see actual change in their behavior, and I wanted them to understand that my financial support was not unconditional anymore. But before any of that could happen, they needed to understand how serious I was. The next morning, Malcolm and I took down every photo of my parents from our house. The wedding photo where they stood stiffly beside us, smiles not quite reaching their eyes. The Christmas photos where they held Eli and Noah like fragile foreign objects. The family reunion picture where they stood on the opposite side from Malcolm as if proximity might be catching. We took them all down and packed them in a box in the garage. In their place, we hung new photos. Our little family of 4 at the beach, all of us laughing as Noah tried to bury Eli in sand. Malcolm and me on our anniversary, his arms around me, both of us genuinely happy. Eli's school photo where his smile was so big and proud. Noah's finger painting that had won a contest full of wild color and joy. Our house had always been welcoming, but now it felt like ours. Not a satellite office of my parents' home, not a place where we performed acceptability for visitors who judged us. Just ours. That evening, my father showed up at our door. No warning, no call, just his Mercedes pulling into our driveway at 7 o'clock. Malcolm answered the door, his 6'3" frame filling the doorway, and I stood behind him ready. I need to speak with my daughter. Bob said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. She's here, Malcolm replied evenly. And I'm staying. My father's jaw clenched, but he nodded curtly. We did not invite him in. This conversation was happening on the doorstep. Jacqueline, what is the meaning of this? He demanded. You've stopped the bank transfers. You're trying to remove yourself from our mortgage. You're not answering calls. Your mother is beside herself with worry. The meaning, I said calmly, is that I'm establishing boundaries. I will no longer be providing financial support to people who treat my children as less than their cousins. That's absurd, he blustered. We don't treat them differently. They're all our grandchildren. Really. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I had taken of his hallway the night before. Then explain this. 43 family photos. In 31 of them, Char's kids are front and center. My kids appear in 18, and in 12 of those, they're partially cut off or blurry or shoved to the side. He barely glanced at the phone. You're reading too much into photo composition. Then explain the floor, I said, my voice hardening. Explain why my children ate sandwiches on the kitchen floor while Liam and Olivia ate hot lasagna at the table. They wanted to play a game, he said, repeating Char's lie. Children do that. My children don't lie to me, I said. Eli told me they didn't want to bother anyone. He's 8 years old, Dad. 8! And he's already learned that asking for equal treatment in your house is bothersome. You're being oversensitive, Bob said, and there it was. The same refrain I had heard my entire life whenever I objected to anything. Too sensitive, too emotional, making mountains out of molehills. This is all in your head. We love those boys. Then prove it, I challenged. Show me you love them exactly as much as you love Liam and Olivia. Treat them exactly the same. Post photos of them on Facebook. Invite us to Christmas morning, not afternoon. Make them hot meals. Put them in the center of family photos. Acknowledge that they are just as much your grandchildren as Char's kids. We do acknowledge that, he said, but his eyes slid away from mine. You're creating problems where none exist. No, I said firmly. I'm finally addressing problems I've been ignoring for years, and until you can admit that those problems are real, we're done here. You can't keep my grandchildren from me, he said, and now there was a threat in his voice. I have rights. Grandparents have no legal rights in this state unless there's been an adoption or custody situation, Malcolm interjected smoothly. We checked. You have exactly the rights we grant you, which currently amount to none. My father's face flushed red. You're turning her against us, he said to Malcolm. This is your influence. She was never like this before you came along. No, I said sharply. Malcolm didn't turn me against you. You did that yourselves. Every time you looked at my husband like he was a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. Every time you flinched when he touched me. Every time you asked if I was sure about marrying him. Every time you treated our children like they were less than. We never, Bob started, but I cut him off. You did. You do. And until you can admit it and genuinely change, you won't be part of our lives. Now leave our property. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his eyes. He was realizing that I meant it, that his usual tactics of intimidation and dismissal were not going to work this time. You'll regret this, he said finally. When you need us, we won't be there. I've needed you my whole life, I replied. You were never there. The difference is now I've stopped pretending otherwise. He left without another word, his car peeling out of our driveway with unnecessary aggression. Malcolm closed the door and pulled me into his arms. I was shaking, adrenaline flooding my system, but I also felt lighter than I had in years. You did good, he murmured into my hair. I'm proud of you. The next few weeks were hard in ways I had not anticipated. I had expected anger from my family. I had expected more phone calls, more confrontations, more attempts to guilt me into resuming our previous relationship. What I had not expected was how they would escalate. It started small. Messages from people at the church my parents attended, people I barely knew, reaching out to say they had heard there was a family rift and they were praying for reconciliation. The implication was clear. I was the problem. I was the one breaking up the family. I was the one who needed to repent and return to the fold. I ignored them all. Then came the social pressure. My parents had positioned themselves as pillars of their community, generous donors to various causes, beloved fixtures at neighborhood events. They began quietly spreading their version of events, that I had cut them off without reason, that I was keeping their grandchildren from them out of spite, that I had always been difficult and overly sensitive, that Malcolm had changed me. Some people believed them. Old family friends stopped calling. Distant relatives unfriended me on social media. My mother's sister, Aunt Patricia, sent me a long email about honoring thy father and mother and not letting pride destroy family bonds. I deleted it without finishing it. But the worst came when my father called Malcolm's department chair at the university. He did not threaten directly. He was too smart for that. Instead, he asked concerned questions about whether Malcolm was creating a hostile environment at home, whether his personal issues might be affecting his professional judgment, whether the university was aware of his influence over vulnerable family relationships. Malcolm's chair, to his credit, shut that down immediately. He told my father that personal family matters were not the university's concern unless they affected job performance, which they did not. But the attempt itself was a line crossed. My father was willing to jeopardize Malcolm's career to punish me for setting boundaries. When Malcolm told me about the call, I felt my remaining sympathy for my parents evaporate. They were not just misguided or stuck in their ways. They were actively malicious. They were willing to destroy our livelihood because we refused to let them treat our children as second class. He won't stop, I told Malcolm that night. He's going to keep escalating until we either give in or he finds a way to hurt us enough that we have to come back. Then we don't give him the chance, Malcolm said. He had been doing his own research, making his own plans. We document everything. Every call, every threat, every attempt to intimidate or manipulate. If he keeps pushing, we get a restraining order if necessary. I never thought I would be discussing restraining orders against my own father, but here we were. The next escalation came from Char. She showed up at my office unannounced, demanding to see me. My assistant David, bless him, stopped her in the lobby and called me before letting her through. I told him to send her away. Char did not take that well. According to David, she had raised her voice loud enough for the entire floor to hear, accusing me of abandoning family, of being brainwashed by my husband, of keeping innocent children from their loving grandparents. Building security had to escort her out. She called me immediately after, furious. "How dare you embarrass me like that? I'm your sister. You can't just have me thrown out like I'm nobody." "You came to my workplace to cause a scene," I said coldly. "What did you expect?" "I expected you to talk to me like an adult instead of hiding behind your secretary." "I have nothing to say to you," I replied. "Not until you're ready to apologize for how you've treated my children." "Jesus Christ, Jackie, they're fine. They're fed, they're safe, they're loved. You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "They ate on the floor, Charlotte." "So what kids eat on the floor sometimes, it's not abuse. While your children ate hot meals at the table," I continued. "While you and Mom talked about how they need to know their place. While you referred to them as those mixed kids." There was a pause. "You're twisting my words." "I heard your exact words," I said. "I was standing right there. Don't gaslight me." "Fine," she snapped. "Fine. Maybe I said some things I shouldn't have. But you're not perfect either, Jackie. You've always acted like you're better than everyone else just because you make more money. You've always been condescending about my choices, my life." "I have never." I started, but she talked over me. "You have. You absolutely have. Walking around like you're so enlightened because you married a black man like that makes you special. Like you get to be the moral authority on everything. Meanwhile, you're using money to control Mom and Dad, and now you're punishing them because they don't worship your kids the way you think they should." "I'm punishing them?" I asked incredulously. "Charlotte, I've given them over $100,000 over the past 9 years. I've co-signed their mortgage. I've paid for renovations and cars and vacations. I've done all of that while they treated my family as inferior to yours. If anyone's been used here, it's me." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Nobody forced you to give them money. You offered. You wanted to play the generous daughter. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted. Everyone thinks you're so successful in giving. Don't act like you're the victim now." I realized then that there was no getting through to her. Char had spent so long being the favored daughter that she could not conceive of being in the wrong. She had benefited too much from the family dynamic to want it to change. "I'm done with this conversation," I said. "Don't come to my office again. Don't call me. Don't contact my children. If you or Mom or Dad want to have a relationship with us again, you're going to have to do the work of examining your own behavior and making real changes. Until then, we're done." I hung up before she could respond. That evening, Malcolm sat me down and showed me something he had been working on. It was a small digital recorder, the kind used for lectures and interviews. He had started carrying it with him whenever he thought he might encounter my family, and apparently he had used it. "I recorded your father when he came to the door," Malcolm said. "I recorded the conversation in full, including the part where he threatened to use his connections to damage my career." "Is that legal?" I asked. "In this state, yes. One-party consent for recording. I'm allowed to record any conversation I'm part of, and I think we need to use this." "For what?" "Protection," he said seriously. Jackie, they're not going to stop. Your father is used to getting his way through intimidation. Char thinks she can bully you into compliance. Your mother is going to play the victim and try to use guilt. They have an entire community that believes their version of events. We need evidence. We need proof of what they've actually said and done. He was right, and I knew it. But it still felt wrong, like I was betraying something fundamental by treating my own family as adversaries who needed to be documented and defended against. This is what it's come to, I said sadly. Recording devices and legal strategies and treating my parents like criminals. They made it come to this, Malcolm reminded me gently. Not you. You wanted a normal, loving family relationship where everyone was treated fairly. They're the ones who chose differently. The crisis came to a head 3 weeks later. My mother called Malcolm from a number we did not recognize bypassing our blocks. She was crying, nearly hysterical. My father had been rushed to the hospital with chest pains. She needed me to come. She needed help. The medical bills would be enormous. She did not know what to do. Malcolm put the call on speaker so I could hear. Ellie, what's his condition? He asked calmly. They're running tests, she sobbed. His heart. They think it might be his heart. Oh God, if something happens to him and Jackie isn't here if she doesn't come say goodbye. It was pure manipulation and we both knew it. But it was also possible that my father really was in the hospital. That was the insidious thing about this kind of emotional blackmail. There was always a kernel of truth wrapped in layers of exaggeration and guilt. Which hospital? Malcolm asked. She told him. He looked at me, letting me decide. I took a deep breath. Tell her we'll go, but we're going for information only, not reconciliation, and we're not bringing the kids. Malcolm relayed the message. My mother's relief was palpable, which told me everything I needed to know about the severity of my father's condition. If he was truly dying, she would have argued that the children needed to see their grandfather. Since she did not, this was likely not life-threatening. We arranged for Sarah to stay with Eli and Noah and drove to the hospital. My mother was in the cardiac waiting room, but she was not alone. Char was there along with several people from their church. They all looked up when we entered, and I saw the calculation in their eyes. This was a performance for an audience. Oh, Jackie! My mother rushed over, reaching for me. I stepped back, keeping distance between us. Her hands fell to her sides, hurt flashing across her face. Your father is asking for you. What's his actual condition? I asked. What did the doctors say? They're still running tests, she hedged. Mom, what did they say? She looked at Char, who stepped forward. It's his heart. They think it might be serious. But we won't know for sure until the test results come back. Which tests? Jackie, does it matter? Char asked impatiently. Dad is in there scared and he wants to see you. Can you please just stop being stubborn for 5 minutes? I'm not being stubborn, I said. I'm being cautious, because the last time I saw Dad, he threatened Malcolm's job. The last time I saw you, you had to be escorted out of my office building. Forgive me for not rushing in blindly. One of the church ladies, a woman whose name I could not remember, spoke up. Families should be there for each other in times of crisis. Whatever disagreements you have can be set aside. With respect, Malcolm said firmly, this is a family matter and doesn't concern you. The woman looked affronted, but before she could respond, a doctor emerged from the treatment area. Family of Robert Mitchell. We all stood. The doctor looked at the crowd with some confusion. Is there a spouse or next of kin? I'm his wife, my mother said quickly. This is our daughter Jacqueline and our other daughter Charlotte. The doctor nodded. Your husband had an anxiety attack that manifested as chest pain. We've ruled out myocardial infarction. His EKG is normal, his blood work is normal, and his cardiac enzymes are not elevated. We're going to keep him for observation for a few hours, but he should be fine to go home this evening. An anxiety attack, not a heart attack, not a life-threatening emergency. An anxiety attack that my mother had presented as potentially fatal to manipulate me into coming. Can we see him? My mother asked. Of course, but maybe just close family for now. He needs rest, not a crowd. My mother looked at me expectantly. I looked at Malcolm, who gave me a slight nod. We followed my mother and Char back to the treatment bay, leaving the church contingent in the waiting room. My father was sitting up in bed, looking tired but perfectly alert. His color was good. He was not hooked up to any dramatic equipment, just a simple IV and a heart monitor showing a steady, normal rhythm. When he saw me, his expression shifted through several emotions: relief calculation, then carefully constructed vulnerability. "Jackie," he said, his voice weaker than normal. "You came." "The doctor says you had an anxiety attack," I said without preamble. "Not a heart attack." He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. It felt like my heart. The pain was real. "I'm sure it was," I said. "Anxiety attacks can be frightening, but Mom called saying you might be dying and needed to say goodbye. That was a lie." "I didn't lie," my mother protested. "I was scared. I didn't know what was happening." "The paramedics would have told you it wasn't cardiac," Malcolm said quietly. "They run preliminary tests before transport. You knew." The silence that followed was damning. My mother could not meet my eyes. Char crossed her arms defensively. My father lay in the hospital bed, realizing that his medical emergency had not softened me the way they had hoped. "I think we're done here," I said. "I'm glad you're okay, Dad, but this doesn't change anything. You used a health scare to try to manipulate me back into line. That's actually worse than the other stuff because you're willing to exploit my fear of losing you to get what you want." "Jackie, please," my mother started. "No," I said firmly. "No more. You want a relationship with me and my family. Here's what it's going to take. First, an admission that you've treated my children differently than Char's children because of their race. Not an excuse, not a justification, an admission. Second, a genuine apology to me, to Malcolm, and to Eli and Noah. Third, demonstrable change in behavior. Equal treatment, equal attention, equal love. Fourth, therapy. Family therapy with a counselor who specializes in racial bias and family dynamics. And fifth, no more financial support from me until I see real sustained change for at least a year." "You can't be serious," Char said. "Therapy. You want them to go to therapy because of your paranoia." "Those are my terms," I said. "Take them or leave them. But I'm done arguing about this. I'm done defending reality. I'm done pretending that everything is fine when it's not." "And if we don't agree?" my father asked, and there was still that edge of challenge in his voice as if he thought he had cards left to play. "Then we don't have a relationship," I said simply. "You'll never see your grandchildren again. You'll get no more money from me. You'll have to figure out your own finances, your own problems, your own lives. I'll grieve the family I thought I had, and I'll move on." "Jackie," my mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You can't mean that. We're your family." "Then act like it," I said. "Act like my children are your grandchildren and not problems to be managed. Act like my husband is your son-in-law and not a mistake I made. Act like I'm your daughter and not an ATM machine. Show me that family actually means something to you beyond money and convenience and maintaining appearances." I turned to leave Malcolm beside me. As we reached the curtain, my father spoke. "Wait." I stopped but did not turn around. "You have recordings, don't you?" he asked, "of our conversations. That's why you're so confident." "Yes," Malcolm answered. "We have recordings of the racial slurs, the threats to my career, the manipulation attempts, everything legally recorded with full one-party consent, and we'll use them if necessary." "If necessary for what?" Char demanded. "If you try to use legal means to force access to our children," I said, turning back to face them. "If you try to damage Malcolm's career, if you spread lies about us in our professional or personal circles, if you escalate in any way, we'll make sure people hear exactly what you've said and done. Not speculation, not he said, she said. Your actual words in your actual voices." My father's face went pale. In that moment, I saw him truly understand that he had lost, that his usual tools of intimidation and financial pressure and social manipulation were not going to work. That I had thought this through, prepared for it, and was willing to follow through. "This is blackmail," Char said. "No," Malcolm corrected. "Blackmail would be using those recordings to extort money or favors. We're simply protecting ourselves by documenting the truth. If you behave appropriately, no one ever has to hear them. The choice is entirely yours." We left then, walking through the waiting room full of church ladies who were no doubt expecting a heartwarming scene of reconciliation. Their faces fell as they saw us leaving without my mother or sister, our expressions neutral and final. In the car, I finally let myself feel it. The grief, the anger, the sadness, the relief. Malcolm drove, while I cried, not trying to comfort me with platitudes or tell me it would be okay. Just letting me feel what I needed to feel. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked when the tears finally stopped. Yes, he said without hesitation. You protected our children. You protected our family. You stood up for yourself. Those are all good things, even when they hurt. I feel like I've lost them, I admitted. Even though they were never really what I thought they were, I still feel like I've lost something. You have, he acknowledged. You've lost the illusion of what you wanted them to be. That's worth grieving. But you know what you gained? Your self-respect, your children's safety, a future where Eli and Noah don't grow up thinking they're less than anyone. That's worth the cost. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing it did not make it hurt less. The weeks that followed were surprisingly quiet. No more hospital emergencies, no more surprise visits, no more church ladies reaching out with concerned messages. It was as if my family had finally understood that I meant what I said, or so I thought. 2 months after the hospital incident, my mother called from a number I did not recognize. I answered out of curiosity. Jackie, she said, her voice small and tired. I'm not calling to argue, I just need to tell you something. I'm listening, I said cautiously. We're selling the house, she said. The bank is foreclosing. Without your payments on the mortgage, we couldn't keep up. We have 60 days to vacate. I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it down. Where will you go? We found a small rental in a less expensive area. It's fine. It's just embarrassing, you know. All our friends, everyone at church, they're going to know we lost our house. I waited. There had to be more. Your father had to sell his coin collection, she continued. The one his father left him. It was worth quite a bit, but it's gone now, and Charlotte is having her own problems. Tom found out about her credit card debt. She'd been hiding it from him for years, using money she borrowed from us to make minimum payments. We couldn't pay her back once you stopped helping and it all came out. They're separated now, maybe getting divorced. I should have felt satisfaction. Some vindictive part of me had wanted consequences for their behavior. But instead, I just felt tired. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand the cost of your decision, she said, and there was a hint of bitterness in her voice now. You've destroyed this family financially. Your father can barely sleep at night worrying about money. Charlotte's marriage is over. We're losing everything. All because you couldn't overlook a few small incidents with the children. And there it was. Even in their downfall, they could not admit fault. It was still my overreaction, my inability to overlook my failure to be accommodating. They had learned nothing. Mom, I said quietly, you didn't lose everything because I stopped giving you money. You lost everything because you built your entire lifestyle on my money without ever treating me or my family with basic respect. You took and took and took, and when I asked for the bare minimum of equal treatment for my children, you couldn't give it. That's on you, not me. I'm sassy. They're just children, she said. They wouldn't have even noticed the differences. You made them notice by making such a big deal out of it. Eli is 8, I said. He noticed. He knew he was being treated differently. He learned to make himself small in your house, to not ask for things, to accept crumbs and be grateful. That's what you taught him. That's the legacy you chose. I never wanted any of this, my mother said, and now she was crying. I just wanted my family together. I wanted my daughters to get along. I wanted my grandchildren to grow up knowing each other. I wanted things to be normal. Then you should have treated all your grandchildren equally, I said. It was that simple, Mom. That's all it ever needed to be. But you couldn't do it. You couldn't love Eli and Noah the same way you loved Liam and Olivia because they're black, because they're mixed, because they represent something you were never comfortable accepting. That's not true, she protested weakly. It is true, I said. And until you can admit it, really admit it, we have nothing else to say to each other. I'm sorry you're losing your house. I'm sorry Charlotte's marriage is ending. I'm sorry Dad had to sell his collection. But those are consequences of choices you all made, not punishments I inflicted. So you're just going to let us suffer? She asked. You have the money to help. You could fix all of this with one check. And there it was again. The expectation. The assumption that my money was their safety net, their solution, their right. Even now, even after everything, they still saw me primarily as a resource to be tapped. No, I said, I'm not going to fix it. You need to fix it yourselves. Get jobs, downsize, budget, do what millions of other people do when they can't afford the lifestyle they want. Figure it out without using me. I can't believe how cold you've become, my mother said. This isn't the daughter I raised." "You're right," I agreed. "The daughter you raised would have already written the check by now, apologizing for causing problems, taking responsibility for your feelings, and promising to do better. That daughter would have swallowed her pain and her children's dignity to keep the peace. I'm glad she's gone. I like who I am now much better." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt clear, centered. I had held my ground even when presented with the exact scenario designed to break me. The family guilt, the financial crisis, the implication that I was cruel and cold for not rescuing them. None of it had worked. Malcolm found me sitting on our back porch, staring at the trees in our yard.
"Everything okay?"
he asked. I told him about the call, about the house, the coin collection, Charlotte's divorce, about my mother's final attempt to guilt me into resuming my role as family savior. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Sad," I admitted, "but also sure. Does that make sense? I'm sad that this is how it turned out, but I'm sure I made the right choices." "Perfect sense," he said, sitting beside me. "They're not mutually exclusive. You can grieve the family you wanted while being glad you escaped the family you actually had." That night, I did something I had been avoiding. I wrote a letter to my parents. Not to send, just to process. I wrote down everything I had wanted to say over the years, but never could. All the hurt, all the anger, all the disappointment. I wrote about the child I had been desperately seeking their approval, the teenager I had been trying so hard to be perfect enough to earn their unconditional love, the adult I had become finally understanding that their love had always come with conditions I could never meet. I wrote about Eli and Noah, about the incredible children they were and the even more incredible people they would become, about how they deserved grandparents who saw their blackness as beautiful, not problematic, who celebrated their mixed heritage instead of tolerating it, who loved them unconditionally the way I did. I wrote about Malcolm, about the man my parents had never tried to know, about his patience, his strength, his unwavering support of me and our children, about how he had seen what I could not for so long, how he had gently tried to show me the truth without forcing me to see it before I was ready. And I wrote about myself, about the woman I was becoming, stronger, more certain, less willing to sacrifice my family's well-being for other people's comfort, less desperate for approval from people who had never truly seen me. When I finished, I took the letter outside and burned it in our fire pit, watched the pages curl and blacken and turn to ash. It felt ceremonial, final, a way of releasing all those unspoken words into the universe and letting them go. 3 months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my father, written on plain notebook paper in his careful handwriting. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. "Jackie," it began, not Jacqueline, which had always been his formal way of addressing me. Just Jackie. "I'm writing this letter because your mother says I'm too proud to apologize in person, and she's right. I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the hospital, about how we treated your children differently, about the recordings you have, about everything. I want to say that you're wrong, that we always loved all our grandchildren equally, but I can't say that because it's not true. And if I've learned anything from losing our house and watching our lives fall apart, it's that lying to myself doesn't make reality go away. The truth is, I was uncomfortable when you started dating Malcolm. I told myself it was about cultural differences or worrying about how hard life would be for mixed children. But really, it was about race. It was about my own prejudices that I thought I had overcome just because I voted a certain way or donated to certain causes. When Eli was born, I looked at him and saw something I didn't expect. I saw a beautiful baby who was my grandson, yes, but who was also undeniably black. And that scared me because it meant I had to confront things about myself I didn't want to see. So instead of dealing with my own issues, I created distance. I told myself it was natural that all grandparents had favorites, that it didn't matter as long as the kids were fed and safe. I was wrong. It did matter. It matters terribly. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry we made your children feel less than. I'm sorry we made them eat on the floor while their cousins ate at the table. I'm sorry for every photograph where they were pushed to the edges. I'm sorry for every comment, every slight, every moment where we chose comfort over love. I'm sorry we used you for money. Your mother says I'm deflecting when I say this, but I think we stopped seeing you as our daughter somewhere along the way and started seeing you as a solution to our financial problems. We took advantage of your generosity and your desire to help family. We exploited your good heart. I don't expect this letter to fix anything. I don't expect you to forgive us or resume contact or give us another chance. I'm writing this because you deserve to hear it and because I need to say it even if nothing changes. You were right about everything. And I'm sorry it took losing our house and our dignity and our family for me to finally see it. Your father, Bob. I read the letter 3 times, looking for the catch, the manipulation, the ulterior motive. But if it was there, I could not find it. It seemed genuine, sad and genuine, and far too late. I showed it to Malcolm. He read it carefully, then looked at me. What do you want to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to respond to Engage to see if this is real change. But part of me is exhausted just thinking about it. Even if he means every word, even if they actually change, can I trust it? Can I risk Eli and Noah getting hurt again?
Those are good questions, Malcolm said. You don't have to answer them today, or this month, or even this year. You can sit with this letter and decide what it means to you on your own timeline.
So that is what I did. I put the letter in a drawer and left it there. Some days I thought about responding. Other days I forgot about it entirely. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I started to build a new life that did not revolve around my parents' needs or expectations or approval. Eli started therapy to work through his feelings about his grandparents. The therapist, a warm black woman named Dr. Simmons, helped him understand that the problem was never him, that he was not less than his cousins, that the adults in his life had failed him, not the other way around. Noah was younger, less affected by the explicit incidents, but still carrying some confusion about why we did not see Grandma and Grandpa anymore. We explained it in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people, and when that happens, we have to keep ourselves safe, even if it makes us sad. Malcolm and I grew stronger as a couple. The crisis had tested us, but it had also shown us that we could handle hard things together, that we were a team, that we would always choose our family of 4 over anyone else's expectations. I started therapy too, working through the layers of childhood trauma I had never acknowledged, the ways I had learned to be small, to be accommodating, to earn love through service and money, the ways those patterns had shaped my adult relationships. The work of unlearning them was hard and ongoing, but it was worth it. 6 months after my father's letter, my mother called again. This time I answered. "Hi, Mom," I said cautiously. "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice was different, less performative, more real. "I'm calling to invite you and your family to a family therapy session. Your father and I have been going for 3 months now. Dr. Harrison, our therapist, thinks we're ready to do a joint session if you're willing." This was unexpected. "You've been in therapy for 3 months?" "Yes. We found someone who specializes in racial bias and family dynamics, just like you said. It's been hard. Really hard, but also necessary. We've learned a lot about ourselves that we didn't want to see." "What about Char?" I asked. My mother sighed. "Charlotte isn't ready yet. She's still angry, still blaming you for everything. But your father and I have come to understand that she was enabled by us, that we created the family dynamic that allowed her to treat you as lesser. We're working on that too." I thought about it. "I need to talk to Malcolm," I said. "And our therapist. This isn't a decision I can make alone." "Of course," my mother said. "Take all the time you need. The invitation stands whenever you're ready. Or, if you're never ready, I understand that too. This is your choice, Jackie, not ours. We gave up the right to demand anything when we treated you and your babies the way we did." The acknowledgement meant something. Not everything, but something. Malcolm and I discussed it that night. We consulted with Dr. Simmons, who knew our whole history. She thought it could be beneficial if we set clear boundaries and expectations. A neutral therapist's office. No promises of reconciliation. Just a chance to hear what my parents had to say and decide if there was any path forward.
"I want to be clear,"
Dr. Simmons said to me directly.
"You don't owe them this. You don't owe them your time or your energy or another chance.
What you've done setting boundaries and protecting your children, that's already enough. More than enough. If you decide to explore this, it should be because you want to, not because you feel obligated." I thought about what I wanted, really wanted, stripped of guilt and conditioning and the weight of should. What I wanted was to know if my parents were capable of real change, if they could genuinely see what they had done wrong and become different people. Not for them, but for me. For my own closure and understanding. I want to try, I said finally. One session with clear ground rules. And if at any point it feels unsafe or unproductive, we leave and don't come back. We scheduled the session for a month later, giving me time to prepare emotionally. The night before, I barely slept. Malcolm held me, reminding me that I was strong enough for this, that I did not have to prove anything to anyone, that we could cancel even now if I wanted. But I did not want to cancel. I wanted to see this through. The therapy office was in a quiet building near downtown. Dr. Harrison was an older Black woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She met with Malcolm and me first alone to establish ground rules and expectations. "This session is about communication and understanding," she explained. "It's not about forcing reconciliation or making anyone do anything they're not comfortable with. Your parents have been working hard, but that doesn't mean you're obligated to accept them back into your life. This is simply a space for honest conversation." Understood. We nodded. My parents arrived separately, and I saw immediately that they had changed physically. My father had lost weight. My mother's hair had gone grayer. They both looked older, more tired, less polished than I had ever seen them. They were dressed simply in clothes I did not recognize. None of the designer labels or expensive accessories that had always been so important to them. When my mother saw me, tears filled her eyes, but she did not rush toward me. She stayed in her seat, hands folded in her lap, waiting. My father looked at Malcolm and me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Humility. Dr. Harrison began the session by asking my parents to share what they had learned in therapy. My father went first. "I learned that I'm a racist," he said bluntly. "Not in the KKK way, not in the overt way, but in the insidious way that's almost worse, because it hides behind good intentions and liberal politics. I learned that I could claim to be progressive while treating my own grandchildren as less than because of their race. I learned that I weaponized money and family dynamics to maintain control. And I learned that I was willing to destroy my daughter's life and career to avoid facing my own failures." He paused, looking directly at me. "I learned that you are the bravest person in this family, and I'm ashamed that it took me 68 years and losing everything to finally see it." My mother took a shaky breath. "I learned that I enabled all of it, that I saw what was happening and chose comfort over truth, that I protected Charlotte because she was easier, because loving her didn't challenge anything about how I saw the world, that I took your money and your love and your effort for granted because I could, that I taught my grandchildren that love is conditional and hierarchy is natural, and that I broke something precious because I was too cowardly to do better." She looked at Eli and Noah in the photos on my phone screen that Dr. Harrison had asked me to share. "I learned that those beautiful boys deserved a grandmother who saw them clearly, who celebrated every part of who they are, who made them feel central and cherished, and I learned that I failed them in the most fundamental way possible." I sat there listening, feeling emotions I could not quite name. They were saying everything I had needed to hear. But words were just words. I had heard promises before. "What are you doing differently?" I asked. "Not what you've learned. What are you actually doing?" My father pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was of his apartment, a modest one-bedroom in an older building. "We downsized," he said. "We live simply now. I work part-time at the library to help with expenses. Your mother volunteers at a community center in a predominantly Black neighborhood, listening to and learning from people she never would have engaged with before. We're not doing this to prove anything to you. We're doing it because we need to become different people than we were." My mother added, "We've also been supporting Charlotte's children financially and emotionally through the divorce, but with boundaries now. We don't give money we don't have. We don't enable bad behavior. We're trying to break the patterns we created." Dr. Harrison spoke up. "I want to be clear that your parents still have a long way to go. Unlearning a lifetime of bias and entitlement doesn't happen in a few months, but they've shown consistent effort and genuine remorse. The question is, what do you need from them moving forward?" I looked at Malcolm, who nodded encouragingly. Then I looked at my parents. "I need to know that if we rebuild any kind of relationship, my children will never be hurt again. That means genuine, visible, consistent equality. That means you examining every interaction, every gift, every comment through the lens of whether you would do or say the same thing to Charlotte's children. That means therapy continues indefinitely, not just until you think you've done enough. And that means understanding that I will cut contact again permanently at the first sign that old patterns are returning. We understand, my father said. I'm not finished, I continued. It also means financial boundaries stay in place. I will never again be your safety net or your ATM. You live within your means. If you have emergencies, you deal with them like everyone else deals with them. My money is off the table permanently. Agreed, my mother said quietly. And it means you accept that Charlotte and I may never have a relationship again, that you don't pressure me to reconcile with her, that you don't pass messages or try to facilitate contact. My relationship with my sister is my choice, and I choose distance right now. We understand that too, my father said. We created that rift as much as Charlotte did. We're not going to compound it by pushing you. I took a deep breath. Then we can try. Slowly, very slowly. Supervised visits in neutral locations. No gifts for the children without my approval first. No surprise visits. No expectations of holidays or family events. We rebuild from zero if we rebuild at all. Thank you, my mother whispered. Thank you for even considering it. I'm not doing it for you, I said honestly. I'm doing it for me, so I can know I tried everything before making a final decision. So I can show my children that people can change even when it's hard, so I can close this chapter with clarity instead of regret. The session ended with tentative plans for a follow-up in a month. As we left, my father asked if he could say one more thing. I nodded. I'm proud of you, he said. I should have said it years ago, decades ago. I'm proud of the woman you've become, the mother you are, the life you've built. I'm proud that you had the strength to walk away when we failed you. I'm proud of everything about you, and I'm sorry I never showed it before. I did not respond. I could not. I just nodded and walked out with Malcolm's hand in mine. In the car, Malcolm asked how I felt. Exhausted, I admitted, but also lighter somehow. Like I can finally let go of the fantasy of who I wanted them to be and deal with who they actually are.
Do you think you'll let them back in?
He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, maybe not, but at least now the door is cracked open instead of bolted shut. At least now there's a possibility even if it's small. The months that followed were slow and careful. We met with my parents once a month in Dr. Harrison's office. They shared what they were learning. I shared how their past actions had affected me. We cried. We argued. We sat in uncomfortable silences. But we showed up, all of us, and we tried. Eventually, cautiously, we arranged a supervised visit with Eli and Noah. Just an hour at a park with Malcolm and me present the entire time. My parents brought no gifts, made no promises, just showed up and tried to connect with their grandchildren as if starting from scratch. I watched my father ask Eli about school, really listening to the answers instead of waiting for his turn to talk. I watched my mother sit on a bench with Noah admiring his drawings without comparing them to anyone else's work. It was strange and awkward, and nothing like the easy relationships I had once envied between other families. But it was honest, and that mattered. Eli was reserved, polite, but distant. Noah was more open, young enough to forgive more easily. Neither of them called my parents Grandma and Grandpa. They called them Bob and Ellie, and my parents accepted it without complaint. After that visit, Eli asked me if we had to keep seeing them. Not if you don't want to, I assured him. This is about giving them a chance to show they've changed, but you don't have to forgive them or love them or even like them. You get to decide how you feel and what you're comfortable with.
I don't know how I feel,
he admitted. They seemed different. But I remember how they made me feel before, like I wasn't good enough, like something was wrong with me. There was never anything wrong with you, I said fiercely, pulling him close. Not one single thing. The problem was always them, their prejudice, their failure to see how incredible you are. You are exactly who you're supposed to be, and you are more than enough. Then why do we have to give them another chance? He asked, and it was such a fair question. Because forgiveness isn't always about them, I explained. Sometimes it's about us, about not carrying around anger and hurt forever. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It just means we're not letting what they did define our whole lives. Does that make sense?
He thought about it. Can I think about it? About whether I want to keep seeing them? Of course you can. We'll do whatever you're comfortable with.
In the end, Eli decided he wanted to continue the visits, but only once every 2 months and always with us present. Noah was content to go along with whatever his brother decided, and so that became our new normal. Brief supervised visits, careful conversations, a relationship that existed but was fundamentally different from before. Charlotte never came around. She blamed me for her divorce, for our parents' financial struggles, for the dissolution of the family she had been at the center of. She sent occasional messages through mutual acquaintances, always variations on the same theme: I had ruined everything with my selfishness and oversensitivity. I blocked every avenue she tried to reach me through and moved on. Some relationships could not be salvaged, and I had finally made peace with that. A year after that first therapy session, my parents invited us to Christmas dinner, not morning, which they now spent alone, but afternoon with Eli and Noah included in every aspect. My mother had prepared food she knew Malcolm liked. My father had researched toys that reflected the children's actual interests, not stereotypical ideas of what mixed children might want. It was still awkward. There were still moments of tension, but when I saw Eli sitting at the table, the same table where his cousins had once eaten, while he sat on the floor eating a hot meal and laughing at something Malcolm said, I felt something shift in my chest. This was not the family I had grown up in. It was not the family I had once desperately wanted, but it was something real, something honest, something we were all building together from broken pieces. My father asked to take a family photo before we left. We agreed, but on the condition that Malcolm and I arrange it. I put Eli and Noah front and center, Malcolm and me on either side of them. My parents stood behind us, their hands resting lightly on our shoulders. When I saw the photo later, I almost cried, because for the first time in any family photo that included my parents, my children were the focus. They were centered, clear, undeniably important. And my parents, the people who had once pushed them to the margins, were now literally supporting them from behind. It was not perfect. My relationship with my parents would never be what it could have been if they had gotten it right from the start. The scars from those years of differential treatment and financial exploitation would always be there. But we were trying. All of us were trying. And sometimes trying was enough. 2 years after I had walked out of my parents' house with Eli and Noah, after I had cut them off financially and emotionally, after I had forced them to confront their own racism and manipulation, I could finally say I was at peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because my family had been magically healed or all wounds had closed, but because I had done what I needed to do. I had protected my children. I had valued my own worth. I had refused to accept crumbs and call it love. I stood in my kitchen one Saturday morning watching Malcolm make pancakes with the boys. Noah was mixing batter, getting it everywhere, and laughing. Eli was setting the table, carefully folding napkins the way he liked them arranged. The sun streamed through the windows of our home, the home we had built together, the home where my children never had to question whether they belonged. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Coffee this week, want to hear about my latest dating disaster?" I smiled and typed back a yes. Sarah had been there through everything, supporting me when I finally found the courage to stand up for myself. She had celebrated every boundary I set, every moment I chose my family's well-being over other people's comfort. Later that afternoon, Dr. Simmons called to check in. We had transitioned to monthly calls instead of weekly sessions, a sign of how far I had come. "How are you doing?" she asked. "Good," I said, and I meant it. "Really good, actually." Eli made honor roll again. Noah's art got selected for the school district showcase. Malcolm's research was published in a major journal, and I got promoted to senior partner at my firm. "That's wonderful," she said warmly. "And how are things with your parents?" "Complicated but manageable," I admitted. "They're still in therapy, still working on themselves. We see them occasionally, always on our terms. It's not the relationship I once wanted, but it's the relationship I can live with." "And Charlotte?" "No contact. She's remarried, apparently, to someone with money. I heard through the grapevine that she's told her new husband's family that I'm the difficult sister who caused all her problems. I used to let that bother me. Now I just feel sad for her." "That's growth," Dr. Simmons observed. "Being able to feel compassion without taking responsibility for someone else's choices." After we hung up, I thought about that. Growth. That's what the past 2 years had been about. Not revenge, though there had been moments of satisfaction when consequences caught up with my family's behavior. Not victory, though I had won the battle for my children's dignity. just growth. The painful, necessary growth that comes from finally choosing yourself. I thought about the woman I had been before that November evening. The woman who would have seen her children eating on the floor and found a way to excuse it. Who would have swallowed her hurt and written another check and pretended everything was fine? Who would have sacrificed anything, even her children's emotional safety, to maintain the illusion of family harmony? That woman was gone, and I did not mourn her. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who understood that real love did not require you to diminish yourself, someone who could look in the mirror and be proud of the choices she had made, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones. Malcolm came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Penny for your thoughts." "Just thinking about how far we've come," I said, leaning back against him. "How different things are now." "Better or worse?" he asked, though I could hear the smile in his voice. He knew the answer. "So much better," I said. "Harder but better, real but better." We stood there together watching our children play in the living room. Eli was helping Noah build an elaborate structure out of blocks, the two of them working together with the easy affection of brothers who knew they were loved equally unconditionally without having to earn it. That evening I received an email from my father. He sent them occasionally, now never expecting responses, just sharing updates on his life. This one was different, though. "Jackie," it read, "your mother and I have been talking a lot about legacy lately, about what we want to be remembered for. For so long we measured our lives by the wrong things. The house we owned, the money we spent, the appearances we maintained, the status we projected. We lost all of that, and it turns out none of it mattered. What matters is the people we hurt along the way. What matters is the grandchildren we failed. What matters is the daughter we exploited and took for granted. I'm writing this because I want you to know that we understand now. Not intellectually the way we understood things in that first therapy session, but deeply in our bones in a way that wakes us up at night with regret so profound it's hard to breathe. We understand that we taught Eli and Noah that they were less than. We understand that we used your love and your generosity as weapons against you. We understand that we chose comfort over truth, prejudice, over love, control, over connection. And we understand that no amount of apology or change can undo what we did. The best we can hope for is to become people who would never do those things again. To become people worthy of the second chance you've given us, even though we had no right to expect it. Thank you for teaching us what real strength looks like. Thank you for showing us that love without respect is not love at all. Thank you for protecting your children even when it meant losing your parents. You saved those boys from learning the lessons we tried to teach them. You saved them from internalizing the racism we projected onto them. You saved them from growing up believing they had to earn love by being convenient. That's the legacy that matters. Not the house we lost or the money we wasted or the status we pretended to have, but the children you raised to know their worth, the family you built on truth instead of performance, the courage you showed by walking away. We will spend the rest of our lives trying to deserve a place in that family, even a small one on the periphery. And if we never fully succeed, we'll understand why. With love and profound respect, your father. I read the email twice, then showed it to Malcolm. He read it silently, then looked at me. "How does that make you feel?" "Validated," I said after a moment. "Like all the pain was worth it. Like standing my ground and refusing to back down actually changed something, not just for me, but for them too." "Are you glad you gave them another chance?" he asked. I thought about it carefully. I'm glad I gave myself the option of another chance. I'm glad I didn't close that door forever out of anger or hurt, but I'm also glad I took my time set boundaries and only opened it a crack after they proved they were serious about change. Both things can be true. That night, after the children were in bed, I sat down at my computer and wrote a response. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. "Dad," I wrote, "thank you for your email. Thank you for continuing to do the work even when it's uncomfortable. Thank you for understanding that this process isn't about getting back what you lost, but about becoming better people. You asked about legacy. Here's what I hope mine will be. I hope Eli and Noah grow up knowing that their worth is inherent, not earned. I hope they understand that real love means being seen and valued exactly as they are. I hope they learn that it's okay to walk away from relationships that diminish them, even family. I hope they know that setting boundaries is an act of love, not cruelty. And I hope they learn from watching us navigate this complicated reconciliation that people can change, but only if they truly want to. That forgiveness is possible, but it doesn't mean forgetting or accepting unacceptable behavior. That families can be rebuilt, but only on foundations of honesty and mutual respect.
We're not there yet. We may never fully be there, but we're trying, and that's something.
Take care of yourself and Mom. Keep doing the work. Keep showing up. Keep being honest about your mistakes and your growth. That's all anyone can do.
Jackie.
I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then closed my laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and joys, but tonight I was content. The following months continued much the same way. Slow progress, occasional setbacks, moments of genuine connection interspersed with reminders of old wounds not fully healed, but overall movement forward. Eli started opening up more during visits with my parents. He asked them questions about their lives, their therapy, what they were learning. My father answered honestly, never sugarcoating his past failures or the work he was still doing to overcome his ingrained prejudices. My mother shared stories about her volunteer work, about the people she was meeting and learning from, about how much she had taken for granted her entire life. Noah remained more guarded, but that was okay. He was young enough that he didn't remember as much of the bad times, but old enough to be cautious about trusting people who had hurt his family. He would come around in his own time, or he wouldn't. Either way, I would support his choice. One day, about 2.5 years after I had first walked out, my mother asked if she could take Eli and Noah to the zoo, just her one-on-one time with her grandchildren. My first instinct was to say no to maintain the boundaries that had kept my children safe. But I looked at Malcolm, who gave me a subtle nod. "Trust your gut," his expression said. I looked at Eli. "What do you think? Do you want to go to the zoo with Ellie?" He considered it seriously, the way he approached most questions these days. "Can Noah come too?" "If he wants to," I said. Noah perked up. "The zoo? Will we see the elephants?" My mother smiled, genuine and warm. "We can see whatever you want to see, and we can get lunch there wherever you'd like to eat. Your choice." I set ground rules. They would go for 3 hours maximum. Malcolm and I would be available by phone the entire time. My mother would bring them back by a specific time, no exceptions. Any sign of differential treatment or problematic behavior, and these outings would stop immediately. My mother agreed to everything without argument, and when she picked up the boys that Saturday morning, I saw her hands shaking slightly as she buckled them into her modest sedan. She was nervous, afraid of messing up this chance. And somehow that vulnerability made me more comfortable letting them go. I spent those 3 hours on edge, checking my phone, constantly jumping at every notification. Malcolm made me tea and sat with me, understanding that this was a big step and I needed to process my anxiety about it. When they came back, both boys were chattering excitedly about the animals they'd seen. Noah had a stuffed elephant clutched in his arms. Eli had a book about marine biology. My mother looked exhausted but happy, truly happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Thank you," she said quietly as the boys ran inside to show Malcolm their treasures. "Thank you for trusting me with them." "Don't make me regret it," I said, not unkindly. "They're everything to me. Everything." "I know," she said. "I see that now. I see how you love them the way I should have loved you. Completely. Unconditionally, without reservation or qualification. You're a better mother than I ever was, and I'm grateful they have you." After she left, I asked the boys about their day. Every detail, every interaction, they shared enthusiastically. Ellie had let them choose where to eat. Ellie had asked about their friends at school. Ellie had listened when Noah explained his ideas for a story he was writing. Ellie had told Eli she was proud of his grades and his kindness to his brother. Nothing had gone wrong. She had treated them exactly as grandchildren should be treated. And slowly, tentatively, I felt some of my protective walls start to lower. But I remained vigilant. I would always remain vigilant, because the cost of letting my guard down completely was too high. My children's emotional safety would always be my priority above reconciliation, above family harmony, above everything. As time went on, my parents continued to prove themselves. Small gestures of change that accumulated into something meaningful. birthday cards sent on time with personal messages, phone calls where they asked about Malcolm's work and actually listened to his answers, invitations that respected our schedule instead of demanding we accommodate theirs, photos posted on social media showing Eli and Noah prominently proudly. It would never be the relationship I had once dreamed of having with my parents. Too much had happened, too many years of damage, too many moments that could never be taken back. But it was a relationship I could live with, one built on truth instead of pretense, one where my children were valued for who they were instead of tolerated despite it, one where boundaries were respected instead of trampled. And perhaps most importantly, it was a relationship that taught my children powerful lessons, that people can change if they truly commit to it, that consequences matter, that you can forgive without forgetting, that love requires respect, that family is defined by behavior, not biology. Charlotte remained absent from our lives, and I had made my peace with that. Some people would rather cling to their victimhood than do the work of self-examination. Some people would rather blame others than accept responsibility for their choices. Charlotte had chosen her path, and I had chosen mine. We were better off apart. 3 years after everything had fallen apart and slowly been rebuilt into something new, Malcolm and I took the boys on a vacation, just the 4 of us, to a beach resort where we could relax and reconnect away from the complicated dynamics of extended family. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our hotel balcony, Malcolm turned to me. "Any regrets?" I knew what he was asking. Did I regret walking away? Did I regret the confrontation, the boundaries, the pain I had caused by standing up for myself and our children? "Not one," I said firmly. "I regret that it took me so long. I regret the years I let them treat us badly because I was afraid of conflict. I regret every time I chose their comfort over our dignity. But walking away, setting boundaries, demanding better, no regrets about any of that." "You know what I'm proud of," Malcolm said, pulling me close. "I'm proud that you did this for the right reasons, not for revenge, not to hurt them, but to protect our family, to teach our children that they deserve respect, to show them what healthy boundaries look like." "I learned from the best," I said, kissing him softly. "You never wavered. You never told me I was overreacting or being too sensitive. You stood by me even when it was hard, even when my family attacked you. Thank you for that." "Always," he said simply. "That's what love is, standing together even when the world wants you apart." We stood there together, watching the waves crash against the shore, the sky painted in shades of pink and orange and purple. Behind us, we could hear Eli and Noah playing some elaborate game they'd invented, their laughter bright and uninhibited. This was what I had been fighting for, this peace, this security. This knowledge that my children were growing up in a home where they were valued, protected, celebrated exactly as they were. Not in spite of their heritage, but including it. Not despite their blackness, but celebrating it. I had lost the family I was born into, but I had gained something far more valuable. I had gained myself, my self-respect, my understanding of my own worth, my ability to stand firm in my convictions even when it cost me dearly. And I had given my children the greatest gift I could give them, the knowledge that they were enough, that they were loved unconditionally, that they never had to shrink themselves to fit into spaces that weren't built for them, that they could demand better and walk away from anything less. That night, I wrote in my journal something I had started doing in therapy and continued as a way to process my ongoing growth. 3 years ago, I thought walking away from my parents would destroy me. I thought I needed their approval, their love, their acceptance to be whole. I thought family was worth any sacrifice, any compromise, any pain. I was wrong about all of it. Walking away didn't destroy me. It freed me. It gave me space to become the person I was always meant to be, instead of the person they needed me to be to serve their purposes. I didn't need their approval. I needed my own. I didn't need their love, not the conditional, transactional kind they offered. I needed real love, the kind Malcolm shows me every day, the kind I show my children, the kind that doesn't require you to be less than you are. And family isn't worth any sacrifice. Real family, healthy family, doesn't demand sacrifices that diminish you. Real family builds you up. Real family celebrates you. Real family makes you feel more yourself, not less. The family I was born into failed me in fundamental ways. But the family I built, the family I chose, the family I fought for, that family is everything. And if my parents can become part of that family by doing their own work, by becoming better people, by earning their place through consistent change and genuine remorse, then I'm open to that. But only on my terms, only with boundaries firmly in place, only with my children's well-being as the absolute priority. I used to think that made me selfish. Now I know it makes me strong. There's a difference between being selfish and valuing yourself. There's a difference between being difficult and having standards. There's a difference between breaking up a family and refusing to participate in dysfunction. I'm not the villain in this story, no matter how many people in my parents' community might see me that way. I'm not the difficult daughter, the oversensitive one, the one who couldn't just get over it. I'm the mother who protected her children. I'm the woman who found her voice. I'm the person who chose dignity over dysfunction. I'm the one who broke generational patterns of toxicity and created something better. And I'm proud of that. Finally, completely without reservation, I'm proud of who I've become. To anyone else who might read this someday, who might be standing where I once stood, trying to decide whether to walk away from a toxic relationship, even a family one, I want you to know you're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to demand better treatment. You're allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're related to you. You're allowed to grieve what you wanted the relationship to be while accepting what it actually is. You're allowed to try again if circumstances change, but only on your terms. You're allowed to protect yourself and the people you love. And most importantly, you're allowed to live a full, happy, meaningful life without the people who couldn't treat you right. Their absence doesn't make your life less. Sometimes it makes it more. Choose yourself. You're worth it, I promise. I closed the journal and looked out at the ocean still visible in the moonlight. Tomorrow we would play on the beach, collect shells, make memories that my children would carry with them forever. Memories of a family that loved them unconditionally, that never made them question their worth, that showed them every day that they were wanted and valued and enough. That was the legacy I was building, not through money or status or performance, but through love, real, honest, unconditional love. And it was more than enough.